standing strong in the final moments. As you take a look at the team comparison, I mean, they peppered Bobrovsky in this game. 35 shots on goal. It was chippy to start. A 4-1 lead evaporated to 4-3, and the Panthers survive as they get the victory. And now looking to complete the sweep. Game 4 is Saturday back in Edmonton. And for more, welcome in CBS Sports NHL writer Pete Blackburn. Pete, that got hairy late. I mean, we're talking about a 4-1 game into the third period, and they scored 2 goals, and then you saw Ryan McLeod in front, but Bobrovsky make the heck of a save. Your reaction to what you saw in the final minutes there?
Yeah, I mean, we finally got a game and some moments in this series where it felt like, these were 2 evenly matched teams, and now the results are the same. We've seen the Panthers win basically every kind of game through 3 games that you could imagine. A game in which they were severely outplayed and still won, a game in which they severely outplayed the opponent and still won, and then a very, very tight game and still won. So from what I've seen through 3 games, there's no reason to believe that the Panthers are not already Stanley Cup champions. I know they need to win 1 more game, but this feels locked up to me already. It really does. Yeah,
only 4 teams have come back down 3-0 in the NHL playoffs. When you look at Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid got 2 assists in this game. Leon Draisaitl has no points in 3 games. I mean, here's one of the superstars of the league, and he is held off the sheet. What is Florida doing to disrupt him? What are they doing to take him off of his game, really?
Yeah, I mean, that's Florida's MO, is that their forecheck and their ability to match up against the top opponents on their opponent's team and their opponent's roster. It's existed throughout these playoffs. I mean, you look at every single stop along the way. Tampa, Boston, New York, all of those stars have gone surprisingly quiet. And at this point, maybe it shouldn't be surprising, but it kind of is with Edmonton, because they have Connor McDavid, they have Leon Draisaitl, they have Zach Hyman, they have Evan Bouchard. None of those guys have made a real significant or direct impact. You mentioned Connor McDavid, 2 assists. They're kind of quiet assists, but I mean, they count the same. But when you look at the goal scorers in this series, 4 goals through 3 games for the Edmonton Oilers. You've got Matthias Ekholm, Warren Foegele, Philip Broberg, who wasn't even an NHL player when these playoffs started, and then Ryan McLeod. If you had told me that those would be the Edmonton Oilers' 4 goal scorers after 3 games, you would absolutely guess that they would be down 3-0 in this series. So it's the Stars being kept quiet, and that is the biggest strength that Edmonton has, is their top talent, and it is the biggest strength of Florida's, is neutralizing that top talent, and we're seeing it come to fruition.
Yeah, the Panthers shutting down the 2 top point getters in this postseason in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and they have 3 wins to show for it. A lot of that is on Sergei Bobrovsky, a 14-year veteran. The narrative has been that he hasn't been the guy, right? And look, they were here in this very position last year, lost to the Vegas Golden Knights. What's different about last year's squad compared to this year's squad?
Well, this year's squad is healthy. I think that's the place where you have to start, because they were decimated by the time they got to the Stanley Cup Final. Matthew Tkachuk could barely get out of bed in that Cup Final against Vegas. And this year, they look like the healthier team against the Oilers. I mean, you're talking about an Oilers team where you mentioned Draisaitl, who may be injured. We're probably going to hear stuff that comes out about Edmonton and their players, but everybody's pretty banged up at this point in time. It's just, Florida does look like the healthier team here. They also just generally look like the better team. So I'm not going to use that as an excuse. But I mean, when you're talking about the differences here, it's the health starts first, but also the blanketing forecheck of Florida just seems to it's evolved a little bit, and you've seen this team evolve with it. And you look at the difference between game 1, in which they gave up 18 high danger chances, to game 2, when they made some adjustments with the help of Paul Maurice, their head coach, one high danger chance in game 2. So they are very good at adapting to what's in front of them and making the necessary changes to win games. And I also think you're talking about a Florida team that headed into this series not as like the scrappy underdog that nobody thought would be here. They're now the adult team in this series, and they're playing like it, whereas Edmonton seems to be the team that now looks like they got lucky to be here.
Is this series going 5 games? Are we headed back to Florida?
I think Edmonton can get 1 game. We saw them play a good third period, and this was the most evenly matched game that we've seen so far in the series. So I'm not going to say that Edmonton can't get a game, and we haven't seen a Stanley Cup Final end in a sweep in a long time. So I'll say they can get a game. I don't think that they can win the series. I think that the Florida Panthers are going to be the 2024 Stanley Cup champions.
All right. Well, you know what? It's about over. So I'll give you this stat. When you have a 3-0 lead in the Stanley Cup Final, teams are 27-1. So the Celtics are trying to get the duck boats ready. Now the Panthers are trying to prepare for their first ever Stanley Cup trophy down in Sunrise, Florida. Pete Blackburn here on CBS Sports HQ. Pete, thanks.
You're welcome.
So this doesn't happen all that often. Sweeps in the same postseason in the NBA and the NHL in their respective finals. The last time it happened was some 30 years ago in 1995 with the Rockets and the Devils sweeping their respective opponents. The Devils swept the Red Wings and the Rockets swept the Magic. And the Oilers are gonna need some magic of their own to get back in this series, now down 0-3 on home ice.